Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Dr. Fred Moss, who's a speaker, consultant, and mental health coach. Fred, welcome to the program.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're so welcome. So let's dive into what you do, how you do it, and why you do it. But give us a little bit of your background, your story. How did you get into this industry, and what kind of caught your attention way back in the day?
Yeah, way back in the day. So it's interesting that you're able to introduce me these days and not even call me a psychiatrist, because in fact, that's what I am. And yeah. I'm a psychiatrist, and I've been a psychiatrist for 36 years. But these other offshoots you're talked about are a function of who I was before I became a psychiatrist. So we'll go back to where the beginning is. You know, I was a born healer. I really was. I had two brothers, 10 and 14 years older than me, who lived with my parents, and there was a fair amount of chaos and disarray. And I was called on to bring unity and love through connection and communication, and joy and love and happiness. And apparently that's what I did as a little bundle of joy as a child. I think my brothers wouldn't agree that I've been that way all the way through, but that's a podcast for a different day. So I really felt enchanted and really encompassed and really inspired by communication from a very young age. And what I really wanted to do, and I knew that this was it, was really get that when my parents and my brothers were talking, I was seeing the heart of what humanity was all about. And I knew that there was some deep healing from there. I'm not sure I would have said that at 3, 4, or 5 years old when I learned it, but it was really true. And I became very committed and dedicated to learning how to communicate and the power of communication. So foreseeing that was where all healing took place as a young child, I just worked as hard as I could to learn how to communicate with people of all types and all places, and, you know, wherever their upbringing was, or whatever kind of, whatever kind of whatever kind of aspects about them, whatever kind of demographics they had, I was interested in learning more. And, as it moved forward, I realized that I was naturally becoming a communicator. In high school, people would come to me and spill all their beans on me and let me try to help them organize. And so it became clear that I would be working in mental health. Now, what really was kind of disappointing is that school wasn't the place where I learned how to communicate, even though I was hoping to have it happen in school. It happened out of school. It happened, when I was off school. It happened when I was taking adventures, and outside of school, maybe hitchhiking or going to the other side of the city or the other side of the neighborhood and learning what's going on there. And as time went on, I eventually dropped out of college for the second time, trying one more time to see if it would work, and it didn't. And upon promising that I would never go back to college, my mom got me a position as a child care worker in a state mental health facility for adolescent boys. And finally, I was communicating, and rightfully communicating, and making money, and, potentially making a living by just being a child care worker. But that wasn't enough for me either, because the future of psychiatry was really going downhill, and I was very disturbed about the direction it was going, and thought, okay, one more time through school, let's go. And I went in and I got my medical degree. I actually graduated from Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois, and then became a psychiatrist, not because I liked the field, actually because I hated the direction it was going. And all that really happened since then is it's gone further and further down that direction. So I've had to whittle around and figure out how to create a healing mechanism inside of the industry that I don't think is committed to healing, and actually be me and be a communicator and be a connector, such that actual healing takes place. And that's really what I've been over the last 36 years, and going through multiple changes of the industry, and multiple changes of my own attitude, and what I get to present and how I get to help people heal, in spite of or on the side of peripheral to the conventional psychiatric system, which, as I said, doesn't work very well. I don't think we're watching the world get healthier. I think you would agree. And what really is here is to really start focusing again on speaking our own true, genuine, authentic, core, honest self, and then communicating that with others, because at that moment, it's when we get that burst of healing that we both know can occur when two people connect in that direction.
That's a lot to unpack, but one of the things that jumped out at me that I made a note of is, you said that the industry is not really interested in healing. Reminded me of how some people say, our healthcare system isn't really healthcare, but sick care, because it's not proactive, it's reactive. Is that kind of what you're seeing there in the mental health industry?
Well, the mental health industry, first of all, it doesn't even pretend to heal. It doesn't even, it gives you a condition and tells you you're going to have this for the rest of your life. And by the way, you don't get into a psychiatrist's office without walking out with a condition. Some people think that if they walk in without an intention to have a diagnosis, they're not going to get one. Well, you are going to get one. You're going to get one that first visit because they need one in order to have a third party pay for your services. So you have a condition, and then what you learn is you're now saddled with that condition the rest of your life. And, the best we can do is hope to contain it or perhaps slow down the deterioration. But what's really very disturbing is that the treatments as designed, and certainly the medications at design, do not serve any real purpose other than to perpetuate the relationship that you might have with your therapist or the relationship you might have with your doctor or psychologist. Now, some people would argue that it really has helped them, and that's really great. If people believe that it's really helped them and they wouldn't trade what they have for the world, then all I have to say is more power to you. Congratulations, that's wonderful. But this conversation that we're having is for the hundreds of millions of people, literally, who are pretty sure that they're misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, overtreated, mistreated, etc., inside of the psychiatric system, and that they're not getting better and that their lives are actually continuing to go downhill. And we start looking at, okay, if that's the case, where can we enter this cycle and make a difference? And where we enter the cycle is how people see themselves. If people see themselves as being mentally damaged, as being sick, as being afflicted, as being defective or deficient, then they'll come and get help. But if we can start recognizing and showing people that all that's really happening is you're working with this thing called the human condition, and maybe this symptoms that you think you have of, being X, Y, or Z, awkward in a crowd, or missing deadlines, or having mood changes that are more frequent than you would like, or being nervous or afraid about a world that's very nerve-wracking and very fearful. It's kind of terrifying. To be a human is really not an easy job. And when we start writing this off as we're all humans trying to get through this thing, instead of thinking that we have a permanent psychiatric condition that's going to require help that actually makes us worse anyways, we get a whole new paradigm to start from.
Yeah, exactly. You say that a psychiatric diagnosis is really just a conversation that's primed for transformation. Mm-hmm. Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So just based on what I just said, I mean, what we got here is these conditions don't exist unless someone tells you have it and then you agree. Like, you don't have a condition until
so it's a two-way conversation, meaning it's not just the psychiatrist saying, here's this, go out and do that, and then the patient goes, got it. It should be a good conversation starter to go, okay, let's work through it, help me understand it as a patient.
Yeah, and really a psychiatrist doesn't have any extra special tools that can help you understand your life. Ultimately, what you really need to have is somebody who can connect with you. And it doesn't have to be someone with a license. In fact, you can make a case that that's actually not a very good choice of someone who's there to understand you. If you really want someone to understand you, what you have to do is actually speak from your core values, speak from your genuine nature, speak articulately and authentically about what it is that's going on in your life. And and I know that when someone connects with us, when we feel like we've been gotten, there's just this tremendous relief of power and freedom that happens at that point. And that's what we're really looking for. And that's what the undoctor is really all about. The undoctor is really about taking these diagnoses, which are simply conversations and did not exist and have changed over time. What do I mean by simply a conversation? The best way to look at this is, when you have a broken arm and you go to Singapore, you still have a broken arm. If you have a broken arm and you go to Reykjavik, you still have a broken arm. If you have what you think is a psychiatric condition in St. Louis, you might not even have a psychiatric condition if you went to a different doctor in Spokane. And you definitely probably don't have a diagnosis of a psychiatric condition if you went to Singapore or Reykjavik. You have a different thing going on. So without it actually staying stable wherever and whoever you go, it's not a real condition. It's just a condition based on the culture and based on the diagnostician's whim, essentially. And once you get that, we don't even know what normal is in a mental world. We don't even know what normal is in the emotional world. We don't have a description of that. Don't you think it takes some kind of audacity to actually think we know what abnormal is, thereby suggesting that it's simply a function of the diagnoser rather than a function of a reality?
Yeah. It's all, I've often said tongue in cheek many times, if you ask, 10 financial advisors for the perfect retirement plan, you're going to get 437 opinions. Exactly. Meaning what you just said. If you ask 10 psychiatrists to diagnose this one person, and maybe it's an interview with them on video, so it's that all 10 psychiatrists got the exact same facts, you would not get 10 different diagnoses. You would probably get 11 or 12 because one or two of them would have a couple opinions.
More than one or two of them. Almost all of them will have more than a couple things. And when people come into my office, they say, I have 8 psychiatric diagnoses. All that really means to me typically is, you've seen 8 clinicians. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And obviously you haven't gotten something that makes you feel confident because you're here talking to me.
Yeah, I'm your 9th guy, and that's how this works. Yeah. So, you're here talking to me, and really what we can get is all that's been happening is that you've been knocking on a door that is actually there to secure and perpetuate, increase, induce, and sometimes actually even cause these so-called symptoms that they're marketed to treat. So when we get that's a very disturbing concept in and of its own right, of course. This idea that the treatment is actually causing the symptoms it's marketed to deal with is a very disturbing symptom, very disturbing phenomena. But when we start getting that is really what's happening, whether we like it or not, that's when we start looking at how can we shift the paradigm from the foundation up. And the way that we can do that is by recognizing what humans have known their whole life, like all the way back to as far back as you want to go in humanity, that human connection is at the heart of all healing. We've all known that. We all knew that when we were 3. We knew that in past lives. We can see that in all our readings of all the spiritual gurus and all the, icons from the past and the sages and the prophets from the past. They always said the same thing, which is at the heart of all healing, one way or another, is when human connection takes place. So when we feel like we've been heard and understood and actually gotten, we get this freedom that is indescribable and certainly more powerful than anything that the conventional psychiatric system or the conventional pharmacology or even the conventional psychological modalities that are available would have to offer.
So it's not even in what I'm hearing you say, it's not even what's the alternative to the conventional psychiatric system. It's really, what is Dr. Fred Moss seen that is a travesty, and what have you put into place to help counteract that, to say, listen, we need to go down a path this way. So what are, I know we can unpack that for days on end, but give us a 30,000 foot view of what you now have seen, what solutions you're putting into place, and getting that message out to the world.
Yeah. So, the general solution of the whole thing, I've tried to look at in 2006, I took a big bunch of people off of medicine, which was, like hair raising for some people, like so frightening to come off of medicine. That's hilarious in its own right. As if it's not frightening to start medicines, it's frightening to stop them. That's kind of hilarious. Anyways, when I did that, all these people got better. They got way better, reliably and predictably better. And many of them lost their so-called diagnosis right in the process, where they no longer were feeling that which they thought they had that was requiring them to take medicine. So I had to come up with an idea of how to deliver this news, because at the time it was so disturbing. I just wanted to go to the top of the mountaintops and to scream to everybody, stop doing this. Everyone, please, here's the proof. But what we really learned is that, being calm, being collected, and starting to believe, in fact, that if the reason you're taking medicine is that you're pretty sure there's something broken. Like you wouldn't have to fix it if you didn't think there was something broken. So when backing up a little bit, I saw that the real place for entry is helping people see that maybe, just maybe, it's possible that there's never been anything wrong with them in the first place, even after acquiring a psychiatric diagnosis.
Wow.
So that's the first thing, is acknowledging we all have the same condition. It's called the humanity. We all have the same thing. It's humanity. It's difficult. It's challenging. There's obstacles and hurdles that we have to overcome. It's hard to be a human being, and it's often very painful and can create massive misery. That's really true. I don't mean to downgrade that in any way. It's not like I'm diminishing the power of that. It's very, very real. But having those conditions doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. So the first thing we do is we acknowledge that maybe there's never been anything wrong with you in the first place, because as you see, that would stop the whole cascade. The way that we do that, there are many ways. Finding Our True Voice, a book that I wrote, is one way, called Find Your True Voice. And another book I wrote was The Creative 8. So being creative offers multiple ways to communicate that don't even count on words and ears to get done. And we can create different ways to communicate who we are with others when using creativity, art, music, dancing, singing, drama, etc., to express ourselves. So I help people with the Moss method, which are 20 different tactical strategies, tools and tricks, exercises and practices that we can put into place starting today. They're very inexpensive. None of them, only I think one of them would even cost more than $1, and that would be yoga lessons, but we're a yoga studio or something. But the rest of them are all free. They're all available no matter how busy you are. And they really help us get grounded into seeing, oh my God, yeah, life is painful, but no one ever said it wasn't. And really, life is scary, and no one ever said it wasn't. Life's anxiety producing, when no one ever said. We start getting to see access to who we really are, so that we can make ourselves available to being in massive conversations with people, one way or another, using words or using creative, presence, to communicate together and then connect together. And then, of course, create this thing called healing, which is just a function of the word love, ultimately, anyways.
I love it. So you've written more than one book.
I've written a couple books. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. Isn't it interesting? And here's another like paradigm observation. You get someone that's like, ooh, you are an expert and I want to take your entire course, and I want to come to your weekend seminar, and it's going to be $1,900 or whatever the number is. But oh my word, your book, I want it for $9 or less. But in reality, your book is a data dump of all of these solutions just put in written format. So I've been an avid reader my whole life, and I just think that people are missing the boat by not starting with, let me listen to the book or read the book and then go from there. So tell us a little bit about your latest book.
Yeah, the two books, my latest book is the one I'm writing right now, which isn't quite out of the oven yet. But the two that I've written that I'm pretty proud of are Find Your True Voice, and you can find that one at findyourtruevoicebook.com, findyourtruevoicebook.com. And that one comes for free. That's actually a free hardcover book, or it's not quite hardcover, but a free real book. And all you pay for is shipping to get it to your home. And I am really proud of that one. It speaks to a lot of the solutions we're talking about here. But the other one is called The Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and healing through creativity and communication. And actually, I got that. That's not what it's called. It's called Healing Through. God, the tagline is how embarrassing. Anyways, it's called The Creative 8.
The Creative 8. That's catchy.
Yeah, and the Creative 8 is looking at and self-expression, healing through creativity and self-expression. So basically what we're looking at there is using different technologies, different modalities, different, performance and visual art subjects to express ourselves open and honestly, because of course, as I said before, I'm not even saying anything controversial here. We all know that connecting with another person, there's very little that's more pleasurable than that, and very little that is a greater solution than that. If you can find a better solution than actually connecting with someone else, please write me and let me know what that is, and I'll do that. But when we really get that that's what's here, the Moss Method, the books, and the second book, Creative 8, it can be found on my website, and that's at welcometohumanity.net/creative or /creative 8, which will give you the audiobook of that same title.
Awesome. And how, let's wrap up with this. I think we've covered a whole lot of content, and I think we've only scratched the surface because you've got a lot of unique perspectives. So if someone is interested in learning more about your work, also picking up the Creative 8 and your new book, when that is announced, what's the best way that they can do that?
The best way to do that is probably a way that you're familiar with, and that's to go to my 360 site, drfred360.com. And if you go to drfred360.com, and you just, you can create a discovery call or an introduction call with me, where I'll be glad to share and learn about what's going on in your life. And if there's anything I can do to assist in any way, whether that's be by mentoring or putting, getting you into one of my programs, I would be happy to do that. But I know a lot of people. I have been around for about 45 years, and I understand how the system works. And if it's not me, it is my pleasure as well just to redirect you to one of my colleagues, or to maybe a service or a group or a mastermind or a book or a set of videos or anything that's out there that I think I have pretty good access to assist you in moving life forward. Because after all, we only live once, and being miserable is part of humanity. I hate saying that because I wish it wasn't true, but it is.
Yep.
And what we really need in order to relieve ourselves of that misery is a team, is a group of people, is a family of sorts, or a tribe of sorts, to walk us through what's here and take us on the other side of misery, so that we can at least embrace misery for what it is and move forward, or perhaps even reduce the misery by creating pleasure in its setting and move forward from there.
100%. Well, Dr. Fred, it's been a real pleasure chatting with you. We'll make sure that your link to your website and all of your resources are in the show notes, and I really appreciate you coming on today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really great.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.